Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Shivani Gupta with CNN News 18 and joining me is multiple time Grand Slam winner, India's own tennis superstar Mahesh Bhupati. And Mahesh is joining me today to talk about the event that we all knew was coming, but it still hits us a little bit when it was finally announced, and that's Roger Federer's retirement. Mahesh, what did you make of the fact that Roger Federer has chosen the end of this year to retire? Did you think that he was possibly going to try one more year, although he was just coming off a surgery as well?
Yeah, I think we were all really wishing for it. I think, he's obviously been struggling for the last few years, especially with his knee, multiple surgeries. But we would have all loved to watch him play a few more Grand Slams. But, the champion that he is, I think he knows his body best. And, we're going to have to live with the memories he gave us.
Tell me, what did you think of what do you make of Roger Federer's career, first of all, of course, and the contribution that he has made to global tennis?
So, I mean, see, Roger is, you got to put him on the same, I think, discussion when you talk about the athletes that changed the way the sport was viewed, right? I mean, what Tiger did for golf, or Michael Jordan did for basketball, Michael Phelps did for swimming. I think these guys, changed the narrative. Roger may or may not be, the greatest of all time, but, you know, every year, regardless of I was playing Wimbledon or not, people didn't call me to ask for Wimbledon tickets. They called me to ask for tickets for Roger Federer's match specifically, right? And that is the impact that he had on the game, and he will definitely be missed terribly.
Yeah. So you say he may or may not be the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, there's three players in that conversation. Both the others have more Grand Slams than him. Both of the others have winning records against him. So, it's going to be very hard for all of us Roger Federer fans to justify how we're going to call him the GOAT. But like I said, I mean, I don't think anyone has made an impact on the sport like Roger Federer has.
Do you think, as far as that GOAT question goes, it is the number of Grand Slams that decides, or your impact on the sport, as you're talking about, your emotional connect with the fans? Because on the last 2 points, maybe Roger Federer is a little bit ahead of Rafa and Novak, taking nothing away from them. And, while we all love Federer, we all appreciate the contribution that the likes of Rafa and Novak have made, not just to the sport, but even to Federer's career. I mean, it could have been a much different career, but for the challenge he faced from Rafa and Novak, and he was so head and shoulders above everybody else. It could have been a little boring, but I think the challenge that he faced from both Nadal and Djokovic made it interesting even for him. Uh, do you feel that, as far as the GOAT question is concerned, it is just the pure numbers that matter, or it's a little bit more?
I think down the line, the generation after us will only look at the numbers, right? I mean, we've experienced it firsthand, so we are all a little bit in favor of making sure that Roger is up there in the conversation. But let's not discount the impact Rafa has had on the game, right? I mean, the guy's as nice and as much of a gentleman as Roger, as humble as Roger, and I think, like you said, Roger set the bar at a certain place, and you got to give these two credit because they worked their ass off to make sure they competed and got past his records.
What do you think would be going through the mind of an athlete like Roger Federer to be settling at 20? And he obviously hadn't won a Grand Slam for the last 4 years, so he knew that he was struggling to be right up there as far as Grand Slams are concerned. And I don't think for a player like Roger Federer, anything else matters. I mean, he needs to be in contention of winning a Grand Slam to be continuing in the sport. What do you think would be going in the mind of an athlete like that when you've been so high up there and so loved and so adored, but you're ultimately ending below your two nemesis?
I don't think it makes a difference. I think Roger and everyone around Roger knows the impact he's had on the sport. Like I said, it's not going to be replicated, in my opinion, ever. We saw that this year at Wimbledon when they had the champions walk, and Roger walked onto the court with another 20 grand Wimbledon champions before him, and we all saw the kind of love and ovation he got. So I think his impact on the sport is second to none, regardless if he has 20 or 25 Grand Slams. And I think that's the legacy he leaves behind.
Uh, as part of your playing career days, and even as someone who hosted Roger as part of the IPTL that you held, would you like to share some moments with him and about Roger, the man behind his tennis?
Yeah, I mean the guy is very unique. Had I've been lucky enough to be able to interact with tons of Grand Slam champions, but he was probably the most approachable, the most humble, the most vocal in the locker room. He was always one of the boys, always laughing, joking, even on big match days or before a match. I mean that was probably how he kind of relaxed, but or maybe he just knew that he wasn't going to lose, but he was definitely very unique. I came from the era of Agassi and Sampras and Courier, with who guys, they were like, laser focused. There was never any interaction, if at all, in the locker room. And then all of a sudden, Roger came and he was dancing and singing and giving everyone high fives in the locker room. And then I think that kind of rubbed off on the next generation as well, because that's how literally everyone in the locker room is now.
What do you make of his genius, Mahesh Bhupati? Because that's what you talk about when you talk about Roger Federer, and that's why he continues to be in that conversation of the GOAT. It's not clearly not because of the number of Grand Slams anymore. It is about his genius and his skill and his talent. How would you describe the Roger Federer watching experience that has enthralled fans for so long, and his tennis generally?
I mean, very hard to explain, right? I mean, Roger could literally do anything and everything on the court. I mean, one of the talked about points is the ability to stand on the baseline and half volley Rafa Nadal's forehands, right? I mean, I played against Rafa, and doing anything with his forehand is close to impossible. But Roger used to step on the baseline, half volley it down the line for winners. So, especially in his second innings, right, when he started working with Lubicic, he knew, he had a couple of rough years, and all of a sudden he changed his game to be more aggressive, even one step closer on the baseline, and he came back and he won those another 3 4 slams, which that's impossible to explain, because no other player has ever done that.
Uh, Let me just get to the GOAT question one more time. If we were to pick the GOAT now, at the occasion of Roger Federer's retirement, who would that be for you?
I don't think we can, right? I mean, two of them are still active, so how do we pick? I mean, like I said, I mean, statistics won't lie, and they don't lie in sport. I mean, is Michael Phelps the greatest swimmer of all time? I mean, is Michael Jordan, with LeBron James still playing and Kobe Bryant, what he created, is he the greatest basketballer of all time? I mean, I think Roger, unfortunately or fortunately for all of us, he played in a generation where three, once in a generation athletes played, and I can't, it was an incredible time for all of us. But you know, who's going to finish on top? It's going to be either Rafa or Novak, right? But no one has transcended the game like Roger Federer.
So he's not the GOAT for you in as many words. That because if you're saying that Rafa and Novak are going to
Uh,
be ahead of him, then that's already there. That can't be unwritten anyway. So
yeah, yeah. So I mean, how do you pick Roger as the goat over those two? I mean, that's just that's like saying Sampras is the goat. Why is Sampras the goat?
yeah, true, true. Okay, so let me just talk to you about this generation of tennis, though. Clearly for someone like me who grew up watching uh, Roger, but also Nadal's career. 5 years after Roger had already been there and done it. This generation of tennis is just it's mind-boggling if you look at the numbers. I mean, the top three are sharing 63 Grand Slam titles, and two of them are still not done. Is
Yeah.
this truly the greatest generation that tennis has ever seen, with no disrespect to anybody else before?
I mean, by far. I mean, we've also had Serena Williams. Let's not forget about her. So, I mean, these four, like I keep saying, once in a generation athletes we've got to see at the same time in one generation. So, the fact that they've been able to push each other, share 63 Grand Slams, is mind boggling, right? It's never going to happen again, that we all know. I mean, we saw how Courier, Agassi, Chang, and Sampras pushed each other, and they didn't even reach close to these numbers because there were always other contenders like Becker and Edberg and even Izovic and so on. So these three guys have dominated the sport. This kind of dominance we'll never see again from three people. I mean, maybe someone will come and be number one for a long time, but this kind of joint dominance, I don't think we'll ever see.
What about Alcaraz? He's so young, the youngest ATP number one right now. I mean, could he go on to emulate Federer, Rafa?
I mean, that is the nature of professional sport, right? I mean, no one thought Sachin Tendulkar's records can be broken, and then came Virat Kohli. No one thought Sampras's record can be broken. Then came Roger Federer, and then came Nadal, and then came. So, I mean, you would think he has a chance, but honestly, 22 Grand Slams is a long way away from one. His brand of tennis is extremely physical, so he has to stay healthy for 15 years at that level. A lot of questions, but the kid is incredible. Yes.
Yeah. Tell me, do you think that this is a precursor to Rafa Nadal's retirement as well? While he may be a few years younger than than Roger Federer, his body has obviously taken much more impact because of his style of tennis than Roger has. I mean, one of the beauty of Roger Federer's tennis was that it was less taxing on his body than Rafa's style. Do you think? How many years do you think you give Rafa Nadal?
I mean, if you asked me last year, I would have said 2 years, but he's won two Grand Slams this year, so I'm going to say 2 more years. I mean, as long as these guys are winning at the highest level, I know they will compete because that's what drives them, winning the big ones. And, like I said, I mean, eventually we're going to lose all three, but, hopefully we can hang on to the other two for a few more years.
For a few more years. Tell me, what is, according to you, the greatest moment of Roger Federer's career?
Whew. I mean, there's been so many defining moments. I mean, I remember the forehand down the line he hit to beat Sampras at Wimbledon, which was the changing of the guard. Uh, I mean, how do you pick a moment in Roger's career, right? I think there's been so many. It's just been outstanding.
And what is it that any young athlete you think can take from Roger Federer's career, and especially his conduct through all of those years in being at the top, then being challenged, then coming back, and then being left behind? I don't think that we see very many athletes who can conduct themselves the way that Roger Federer has through everything.
Yeah, he was just, that's why they called him Mr. Perfection, right? I mean, everything he touched on the court, off the court, the brands he associated with. I mean, it was always Rolex or Mercedes or, brands like that. He kind of had an aura uh, about himself. That's why he was the highest paid athlete in the world, even though American team sports, is the biggest revenue churner in the world, and tennis isn't. So yeah, I mean that. I mean, it's very hard. Like I said, we're talking about the Michael Jordan of tennis, and how do you teach someone to be Michael Jordan? That's not possible.
Do you think he's satisfied? Do you think there would be somewhere at the back of his mind annoying feeling that, despite my supreme talent and the gift that he had, he couldn't end at the very top, at the very pinnacle?
No, absolutely not. I don't think these kind of athletes regret that. I mean, when Sampras finished with 14, he doesn't regret today that there's three guys ahead of him. I mean, Roger did what he could. I mean, he could have won so many more if he converted match points. I remember semi-final of US Open, he had match points 40-15 serving for the match against Novak. I mean, but it's the same for goes for the other two, right? I mean, that's the beauty of sport. He's made the impact that nobody could have dreamt of, including him, and that's what he leaves behind.
Final question, Mahesh Bhupati. What do you see Roger Federer doing? He left a hint that he would still play tennis. Do you think that's exhibition tennis? Do you see him on the seniors tour? What do you think is in store for him?
I definitely do not see Roger Federer on the senior tour. If anything, it's exhibition tennis. I mean, there's so many millions of fans around the world who have not got to see Roger Federer play live. And, if he gets healthy and he decides to play a few cities every year, I mean, I think everyone will embrace him with open arms. But, not many people know about Roger that he's extremely savvy investor. He's invested in a brand of shoes. He has multiple investments. So, I mean, the guy, like I said, everything he touches turns to gold. So he's not going to struggle.
Absolutely, but his fans are definitely going to struggle for a little bit to come to terms with the fact that after the Labour Cup from next year onwards, it's not even a question whether Roger Federer is playing because he's just not going to be on the Pro Tour anymore. And truly, it is an end of an era. If
So
it's
Labour Cup,
ever that adage,
Labour Cup is his event. So I'm pretty sure that for the next few years he'll be at the Labour Cup.
he'll be at the Labour Cup. Okay. All right, so that's one opportunity, plus maybe some other exhibition matches around the world because his his fanship is truly global. It's not really just limited to a few large countries. You go anywhere in the world, people tend to know Roger Federer. Thank you, Mahesh, for
Thank you.
speaking your mind. Let's see how the GOAT debate settles eventually. But Roger Federer has made his exit, and what a lovely career he's had overall.
Thank you.